What's today? Today is second to the last day of 2012. So I guess we know that the world didn't end on the 21st. The Mayan calendar, I guess, predicted that the world was going to end on the 21st of December 2012. It obviously didn't. That was in recent memory, that was the fourth end of the world that I've lived through. Last year in 2011, there was a guy that predicted that the world was ending in May, and then when it didn't, he changed that to be October, and then of course that didn't, and then the Mayans were going to be in 2012, and that didn't. And so that's three within the last 2 years that I've lived through. I expect to live through quite a few more. Okay, so today's Sunday, and good, bad, or indifferent, I came out to my parents as being essentially, well, I didn't tell them atheist, but told them I didn't believe in the Bible, didn't believe in the Book of Mormon, didn't believe in religion, didn't believe in Christ. Yeah, it didn't go so well, but it went the way I expected. I started it actually telling my mom about 2 weeks ago, and I tried. It has not worked yet to just open the door a little bit. As soon as you crack it open, they start asking questions. You either have to cap it and say, I'm not saying anything more, or if you answer one question, they have 12 more, and it gets gets to be a little overwhelming for them, not so much for me. But I mean, the evidence is so extensive. The hardest part is trying to decide which pieces to try and help them understand without cracking their skull open, because there's so much. And the other part that's really hard is trying not to refute every baseless argument that they have with evidence, because they don't want to hear it. They want to. Well, my parents did. Now I've talked to Jill was the first one. Gavin was the second one because Jill revealed it to Gavin, and then I told my mom. And now tonight I talked to my mom with my dad being in the room, which snowballed into telling my dad as well. But in every single situation, the first thing they want to do is basically bear testimony to you that they know something, because they know it. And I try and explain, well, the way that you know that your truth is real is the same way that the guy in the other country knows that his truth is real, even though it's contrary to what you believe. And each of you know that your truth is the truth, and each of you know that the other one is being deceived. So how do you know that what you know is real? Which is it's a frustrating thing for them to have to try and explain to you again that they know that they really are bearing witness of the truth to you, and that you're being blinded by science and by facts, and those messy things that you can touch and feel. Those don't count. What really matters is what's inside and how you know the truth, because it's been revealed to you. So anyway, it began. I told my mom a couple weeks ago, and I discussed. We had a conversation on the phone for about 3 hours, and when it kind of boiled down, I told her that aside from my concerns with the church, which are many, I've also started studying science. I know it's almost a dirty word when you've been raised in a church, and the things that I discovered led me to believe that, man, science knows a lot, and they don't make leaps of faith and logic. It's built line upon line and line upon line, and the difference between when a scientist has a theory about something and new evidence comes forward that disputes his theory, he throws the theory out and builds a new one that encompasses the new evidence. Religion, on the other hand, begins with a premise that it knows the truth, and if there is any evidence to the contrary, then that evidence needs to be thrown out. Or that evidence needs to be explained in a supernatural way. In other words, God simply put it there to test our faith, or God can bend space and time, and just because science can't understand how God could bend space and time, if he needs to, he can. He can do what he wants to. He can cause things to poof into existence, and you just get all kinds of supernatural explanations in order to be able to bend to the doctrines. I tried to explain it to my mom in the way that she gave me a book called Mormons and Evolution, and in the introduction of the book about Mormons and evolution, the introduction said, "We know that the doctrines of the church are true. Therefore, we really don't need to get into all of the things about evolution that might cause people to lose their faith. So we really aren't going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about how it's important that we know that the church is true so that we don't get involved in the ideas that evolution is true." And then it goes on for several chapters explaining all of the implications of how, if evolution were true, then we would become godless heathens and would eat babies and murder each other for fun because there's no morality. Well, it didn't address anything about evolution and the evidence that suggests that it's the most likely theory. So anyway, after discussing that with my mom, I told her, I said, the things that you seem to be the most frustrated that I'm talking about is anything to do with evolution. Not so much that I have a problem with Joseph Smith, or that I have a problem with any of the doctrines of the church, or the Book of Mormon, or the papyrus from the Book of Abraham, or any of those kind of things, but that I believe that the earth is older than 1,000,000 years old, and that there was death before we believe that Adam was on the earth, that there would be pre-Adamites, or men before Adam on the earth, or anything like that. Anything other than Adam was placed on the earth as a man, and death began the moment that they partook of the fruit. That's okay. Anything that says differently is not okay. I said, Mom, that seems to be the thing that you have the biggest problem with. I said, if you would be okay continuing this discussion, I've got some science books, some stuff on geology and archaeology and stuff like that, and how about we continue our discussion based on those? She agreed. She said it was okay. So over the last 3 weeks, I put together a YouTube playlist. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. It's called Origins. It's under my Brain Seeds Pro username. But Origins right now has 24 videos, a total of about 3 hours and 17 minutes or something like that. And they range from the size of the universe, the images that have been taken from the Voyager spaceship, the current evidence behind plate tectonics, including the what's it called, a mid-Atlantic rift, and the spreading and the magma with the reversed magnetic polarization in the magma as the plate tectonics have as the plates have spread. We've got different magnetic striping there. As the plates passed over Hawaii and the hot spots, it shows how that all took place. The playlist has things about DNA, how we understand DNA, has stuff about biological evolution with vestigial organs. It has what's it called when you cut up an animal, cut up a body? It's got, like an autopsy. It's got an autopsy of a giraffe that follows the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which is a nerve that goes from the base of the skull down underneath the heart and back up to the larynx. And it shows in a giraffe how it's 14 feet long, which is a vestigial organ, or a vestigial structure from the time that the giraffe had a short neck, mammalian or fish, amphibian, and how it grew or evolved over time. It's got a video of the mud skipper, which is the fish with the fins that walks on land. It's got a video about the combination of, what's the term? The biological evolution and plate tectonics. And so it shows how as the different plates touched, there were fossils that matched this one, and then when they came apart, those fossils diverged and became different types of the same animal. And then when they would touch here, then those fossils cross back over. Anyway, it's a really cool video that shows the combination of biological evolution with the spreading of Pangea, basically. In other words, you've got the geological column that shows how animals become more complex over time, the higher in the strata the fossils are found, and how that coincides with the plate tectonics and where the different land masses touched at different times, and how that coincides with those animals being dispersed throughout the world. And then there's a video that basically says, this is what we found is really the way that fossils are spread. If the flood had really happened and animals were spread that way, this is what we should find, but we don't. So anyway, okay, so the point is I made this playlist, 24 videos that just go along and talk about things as we really see them, what the world around us really looks like, and what it suggests. And so my mom had us over for dinner tonight, and she couldn't figure out how to work YouTube, and so she brought her iPad in and said, okay, so let's help me set up YouTube so I can see this playlist that you've made. And my dad asked, so, what are you guys doing? What are you looking at? I said, well, I've made a playlist that talks about just some of the things I've been studying in science, and how they suggest that the age of the Earth is probably longer than we think. And I've just been trying to recognize how that coincides with religion. And he got very defensive very fast. He said, well, it doesn't. It can't. You can't have religion and science the way that you're talking about coexist. They can't. You have to choose one or the other. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I already have. I know that you can't. That's the problem. You don't know that you have to choose reality or delusion. You believe that you have to filter out reality in order to maintain delusion. And so I spent, I guess it would have been, we went over at about 4:30, and I think we got home about 9:30, so we spent about 5 hours over there. Thankfully, 2 hours of it was dinner, 3 hours of it was discussion. Anyway, they were both very sad. My dad, I said, look, I know that what you're about to go through you're going to go through denial, then anger, then depression. And he instantly said, well, no, I'm not going to go through that. I'm just very sad. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, that right there, the no, I'm not is the denial, and the very sad is the depression. Very happy. What you got to understand is that in my dad's mind, those are the two most godless people he knows. It's basically an atheist as well. And so my dad kind of stuck it to me and said, well, you've made, at the very least, you've made these two people really, really happy. Which, in my mind, was back, okay, so Dad, now you're going through anger, which is why you're being, kind of poking at me. So he bounced back and forth between denial, anger, and depression, and denied the whole time that he was going through denial, anger, and depression. And so both of them bore their testimony to me repeatedly, both of them. My dad talked about how he knew that the prophet really was the prophet because he could feel it. He talked about how he knew that Jesus Christ atoned for us. And I said, well, you've never met him, Dad. You've never met Jesus Christ, so how do you know it? I said, the Bible was written as, third-hand accounts by people who never met him, written by men. Jill's sticking her head in. What? No, you're okay. But now I've lost my train of thought, so yeah, maybe if you can. That's fine. Okay, so anyway, so they bore their testimony, and my dad bore his testimony about Jesus Christ, and I said, but you've never met him, and so you feel these things, but you don't feel them based on anything other than you feel them because you know them, because you feel them, because you know them, because you feel them. And I tried to explain to him, I said, the way that you know that things are real is the same way that somebody who believes in Islam and Muhammad and the Quran knows that theirs is real. The difference is that they know that theirs is real, and they know that anybody who believes in Christ has been deceived and is going to hell. And they know that they're right enough that they're willing to commit jihad. And so we know we're right because we know we're right, because we're obviously right. And they know the same thing. And so I said, Dad, you don't have anything other than the feeling that it's right, and you want to discount all the evidence that's contrary to these things in order to maintain your belief in something that you feel is right, which is the same way that somebody else has contrary conviction of their beliefs. And he got this real somber, sad look on his face, and he just goes, well, then that's why you're lost. So he knows I'm lost, and that I can't humble myself. I tried to explain to him that a couple things. That first of all, I want to be wrong. That I am searching for the truth, whereas he wants to be right, and will do everything he can to make sure that he builds up and buoys up everything that supports his conviction, and will discount and not discuss and not investigate anything that denies his conviction. Whereas I want to be wrong, and I'm willing to study absolutely everything. Everything. I'll put it all out on the table and discuss every part of it. Every part of church doctrine, every part of scientific theory, all of the ideas behind it, why the conclusions, the assumptions, anything. So, as Jill and I were talking later, that's one of the most interesting keys, or, well, red flags, is that if somebody has a belief in something and they get defensive as you start to talk about or question it, or anytime you put up, ask a question about it, like how do you take these two pieces of contrary evidence and put them together? If you ask a scientist that's an interesting question. Let's lay it out. Let's measure. Let's weigh it. Let's talk about the psychological assumptions, the preconditioning, the anything that we can measure. Let's put it all together, and let's vote on it and see who's got the most evidence that suggests. And then, you take into account your gut feelings at the same time. But as far as religion goes, you don't lay it out on the table. You can't discuss evolution. Heavens, that's blasphemy. So anyway, it ended after about 3 hours. I said, I am really sorry to put you through this. I am really, honestly sorry that, well, I didn't say it, but that you think I'm going to hell. I was wanting to have somebody else come to my defense. I wanted Jill to stand up for me a little bit, or I wished that Adam could be there, but it wouldn't have made the slightest difference. The denial, the first step is the denial, and then the anger, and then the depression, and then bargaining, and then acceptance. Now, they'll go through and hopefully at the end accept me. I was really worried tonight. I was worried that my dad was going to kick me out, because he just kind of gave me that vibe. But they'll go through that, and then hopefully they'll accept me, as long as I'm I don't know, open, honest. I don't know that they'll ever accept the ideas, because I think they've got too much invested in it. I mean, they've got nearly 67 years of culture and training and indoctrination. And I mean, if you look at videos of like North Koreans who have been obviously brainwashed, and they believe in Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong whatever his guts is, and how those are the supreme being in their world. There's a point where I think your psyche cracks before it can accept something like that, whether it's based in reality or not. And I've been wondering about studying people like prisoners of war, or there's an interesting book called MiG Pilot that talks about a guy that left Soviet Russia and all of the indoctrination that he went through. So I don't know, there's probably some validity to studying people who've gone through brainwashing, cults, obviously cults. I wanted to tell my parents, I was like, if you look at a church or a religious organization that is a cult, not the LDS church for sure, but one that is a cult and a corporation and a business, how would you run it? I would think that you would teach the people in your control that it was important that they be humble and they be teachable and they be like little children, and that they don't ask too deep of questions, because that's looking beyond the mark, and those kind of things lead to apostasy. And so you shouldn't ask those kind of questions. You need to be humble and teachable. And the only way that you can know something is true is you're going to feel it. And if you don't feel it, then you're not in tune. You're the one that needs to change the way you behave and think, so that you can feel the Spirit. And by the way, I also need you to pay 10% of your income to me. And that's, if it was a cult, that'd be a lot like how it might be run, maybe. Or maybe that's how the true church is run. But I'm cynical and hurt at the same time. Sorry. Anyway, I told Jill that I wanted to record this while it was fairly fresh in my mind, because I thought maybe there'd be some reason to look back on it. I have a mix of hope that this is all going to end well, and mostly doubt that it's all going to end well. Living in delusion, in my mind, is very much like living drunk. That you're happier, you think you are anyway, but you don't make your decisions based on reality, you make them based on feelings. And so getting sober, you have to face a lot of hard facts, and you got to fix things, and you've got to deal with problems in a real way, not with your beer goggles on. And I feel like that's the only reason why I'm willing to put my family through so much pain, is because I think that the pain of reality is better than the beer goggles of religion. If they're basing their decisions based on myths and unsubstantiated claims and feelings, and doing it in a way to be able to benefit a corporation, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, so they can build city creeks and things like that, and own Bonneville Communications and you know, cattle farms, and be able to buy themselves houses and continue to grow that corporation. I mean, there just needs to be some way of helping, but I still wonder whether or not ignorant bliss is better than sober reality. I'll let you know.